As a child, Emily had always known her family was wealthy. Her father, Harold, was a successful businessman who had made his fortune in real estate. Her mother, Sarah, had been a socialite who enjoyed the lavish lifestyle that came with being married to a millionaire. However, as Emily grew older, she began to notice that something was not quite right in her family. Her parents argued frequently, and there were rumors of infidelity and financial mismanagement. Emily did her best to ignore it all, focusing on her studies and her dream of becoming a journalist. But when Emily was just 18 years old, her world was turned upside down. Harold had lost much of his fortune in a risky investment scheme, and he blamed Sarah for their financial woes. One night, in a fit of rage, Harold threw Sarah and Emily out of the family home and onto the streets. With nowhere else to turn, Sarah and Emily struggled to make ends meet. They bounced from one low-paying job to another, and they lived in a series of rundown apartments and motels. Despite everything, Emily was determined to achieve her dreams, and she worked hard to put herself through college. Years later, Emily had become a successful journalist, working for a national news network. She had not seen or spoken to her father since he had thrown them out on the street, and she had no desire to reconnect with him. But one day, as Emily was reporting on a story, she found herself face to face with her father. He was being interviewed about his latest business venture, and Emily was shocked to see him on national television. As she watched her father speak, Emily's heart began to race. She knew that she had to confront him, to hold him accountable for what he had done to her and her mother. So she approached him and introduced herself. At first, Harold did not recognize his daughter, but as Emily began to speak, he froze. He could not believe what he was hearing. Emily told him about the struggles she and her mother had faced since he had thrown them out, about the nights they had spent sleeping in cars and the days they had gone hungry. Harold was overwhelmed with guilt and shame. He had never imagined that his actions could have such a profound impact on his family. He begged for Emily's forgiveness, but she was not sure she could ever truly forgive him for what he had done. But Emily did something unexpected. Instead of turning her back on her father, she offered to help him. She told him that she could use her platform as a journalist to help promote his new business venture, to help him get back on his feet. At first, Harold was skeptical. He could not believe that Emily was willing to help him after all he had done. But as he thought about it, he realized that he had been given a second chance. Together, Harold and Emily worked to promote his business, and they were successful. Harold was able to rebuild his fortune, and he used his newfound wealth to make amends for his past mistakes. He donated generously to charities that helped the homeless, and he worked to support small businesses and entrepreneurs. In the end, Harold and Emily were able to reconcile. It was not easy, and it took time for them to rebuild their relationship. But through it all, they learned an important lesson about forgiveness, compassion, and the power of second chances. Harold realized how lucky he was to have a daughter as kind and forgiving as Emily. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. He knew he had a lot to make up for, but he was determined to make things right. He invited Emily and Sarah to his luxurious penthouse apartment, which was located in the heart of the city. As they walked through the door, they were greeted by the sight of Harold's opulent home, filled with expensive artwork, antique furniture, and sweeping views of the city skyline. At first, Emily was taken aback by the extravagance of her father's lifestyle. She had grown so accustomed to living frugally that the excess seemed overwhelming. But as she looked around, she realized that her father had not forgotten about his past mistakes. The walls were lined with photographs of Sarah and Emily, and Harold had kept every letter and card they had sent him over the years. Over dinner, Harold opened up to his daughter and ex-wife. He apologized for his past behavior and explained how much he regretted his actions. He told them about the wake-up call he had received when he lost his fortune and how he had vowed to never make the same mistakes again. Emily and Sarah listened to Harold's words with a mixture of sadness and hope. They knew that the past could never be erased, but they were willing to give Harold another chance. As the evening drew to a close, Emily stood up to leave. But before she could go, Harold handed her an envelope. Inside was a check for $1 million. Emily was taken aback. She could not believe that her father was giving her such a large sum of money. But Harold explained that he wanted to make things right, that he wanted to help her achieve her dreams in any way he could. Emily was touched by her father's gesture. She knew that the money would make a huge difference in her life, but she also knew that it was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that her father had finally come to his senses and had recognized the error of his ways. As Emily walked out of her father's penthouse, she knew that their relationship would never be the same. But for the first time in a long time, she felt a glimmer of hope. Hope that with time, forgiveness, and love, they could build a new kind of relationship, one based on honesty, respect, and compassion. Years passed and Harold and Emily continued to build their relationship, slowly but surely. Harold had proven himself to be a changed man, and Emily had come to trust him again. One day, Emily was invited to be a guest speaker at a charity event for homeless families. She shared her story of growing up with a wealthy father who had thrown her and her mother out on the street, and how they had struggled to make ends meet. As she spoke, she saw a familiar face in the crowd. It was her father, Harold. He had come to support her, and tears welled up in his eyes as he listened to her speak. After the event, Emily and Harold had a heart-to-heart conversation. Harold told Emily how proud he was of her and how much he had learned from his past mistakes. He said that he had been foolish to think that money could buy happiness and that he had been blind to the things that truly mattered in life. Emily forgave her father once and for all, and they embraced each other, tears streaming down their faces. Years later, Harold passed away, leaving Emily a substantial inheritance. But the money was not what Emily cherished most about her father. It was the love and forgiveness that had been restored between them, and the knowledge that, despite everything, they'd have been able to rebuild their relationship. Emily used the inheritance to start a foundation for homeless families in honor of her mother and all those who had suffered through similar experiences. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And she knew that her father would be proud of her, proud of the woman she had become and the love and forgiveness she had shown him. The foundation that Emily started in honor of her mother and all those who had suffered through similar experiences grew rapidly, and within a few years, it became a well-known charity organization. The organization provided shelter, food, and support to homeless families, helping them get back on their feet and providing them with a chance to rebuild their lives. Emily was proud of the work that the foundation was doing and felt a sense of satisfaction knowing that her father's inheritance had been used for a good cause. Years passed, and Emily became the CEO of the foundation. One day, she received a call from a lawyer who told her that her father had left her another inheritance. She was surprised because she thought she had received everything he had to give after he passed away. The lawyer informed her that her father had left her his mansion, which was located in the countryside. Emily was hesitant to accept it, but the lawyer explained that her father had specified in his will that the mansion was to be used as a retreat for homeless families who needed a break from city life, and that it was to be managed by Emily's foundation. Emily accepted the inheritance, and after visiting the mansion, she was amazed at its beauty and peaceful surroundings. She knew that it would be the perfect place for homeless families to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city and experience a moment of tranquility. Emily worked hard to renovate the mansion and turn it into a retreat that was capable of accommodating several families at a time. She made sure that the retreat was equipped with everything they needed to make their stay comfortable and enjoyable. Years later, the mansion had become one of the most sought-after retreats for homeless families, and Emily had become a prominent figure in the community. She had never forgotten the struggles she had gone through as a child, and she was determined to help as many families as she could. As Emily looked out at the peaceful countryside, she thought about her father and the lessons he had taught her. She realized that sometimes the greatest gift a person can give is forgiveness, and that it can change lives in ways that no amount of money ever could. She smiled, knowing that her father would be proud of her and the work she was doing. As the years went by, Emily's foundation continued to expand, and she became a well-respected figure in the charity world. She had managed to turn her painful past into a source of inspiration, and she was committed to making a difference in the lives of those who were less fortunate. One day, Emily received a call from a woman who identified herself as her half-sister. Emily was shocked to learn that her father had another daughter whom he had kept a secret all his life. The woman, named Sarah, explained that she had only recently discovered the truth about her parentage and was eager to meet her sister. Emily was initially hesitant to meet Sarah, but she decided to give her a chance. When they finally met, they immediately hit it off, and Emily learned that Sarah had experienced a similar childhood to her own. Their shared experiences brought them closer together, and they soon became inseparable. Emily introduced Sarah to her work at the foundation, and she was amazed by the impact it was having on people's lives. Sarah was eager to help, and she quickly became an integral part of the organization, using her expertise in finance to help manage the foundation's finances. Years went by, and the foundation continued to thrive. Emily and Sarah remained close, and their relationship grew stronger with each passing day. Emily had never thought that she would find a sense of belonging, but she had finally found it in the form of her half-sister and the work they were doing together. One day, Emily was invited to speak at a charity event, and Sarah accompanied her. As they were getting ready to leave, Emily saw a familiar face in the crowd. It was her father, Harold. He had come to support his daughters and the work they were doing. Emily was hesitant to approach him, but Sarah encouraged her to do so. Harold looked up as Emily approached him, and a look of surprise crossed his face. Emily didn't know what to say, but Harold spoke first. "I'm sorry," he said, tears welling up in his eyes. "Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm sorry for what I did to you and your mother. I was a fool, and I didn't realize what I was giving up until it was too late." Emily was taken aback by her father's words, but she knew that they were genuine. She forgave him, and they hugged each other tightly, tears streaming down their faces. In that moment, Emily realized that forgiveness was not just about letting go of the past, but it was also about finding a sense of peace and closure. She had never expected to reconcile with her father, but she had finally found the strength to do so. Years later, Emily continued to run the foundation, and Sarah had become the COO. The two sisters had created something beautiful out of the pain and suffering of their past, and they knew that their father would be proud of them. As Emily and Sarah continued to work together and make a difference in people's lives, they began to receive more and more recognition for their efforts. They were invited to speak at conferences and events all over the world, and their foundation received awards and accolades for its work. One day, Emily received an unexpected phone call from a producer at a major television network. They were interested in creating a documentary about Emily and Sarah's work, and they wanted to film them in action. Emily was initially hesitant to agree to the documentary, but Sarah convinced her that it could be a powerful way to raise awareness about their foundation and the issues they were working to address. Over the course of several months, the film crew followed Emily and Sarah as they traveled to different parts of the world and met with people who had been helped by their foundation. They captured intimate moments between the sisters, as well as emotional scenes of people whose lives had been changed by the foundation's work. When the documentary was finally released, it received widespread critical acclaim and was nominated for several awards. Emily and Sarah were invited to attend the premiere, along with many of the people who had been featured in the film. As Emily and Sarah watched the documentary, they were moved to tears by the impact their work had had on so many people's lives. But then, something unexpected happened. In the final scene of the documentary, Emily was interviewed about her childhood and the difficulties she had faced. She spoke about being thrown out on the street by her father and about the pain and loneliness she had experienced as a result. But then, she said something that left everyone in the audience stunned. She said that she had forgiven her father, and that she had come to realize that his actions had ultimately led her down a path that had brought her to where she was today. As the lights came up and the audience began to applaud, Emily felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned around to see her father standing behind her, tears streaming down his face. "I'm so proud of you," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "I never could have imagined that you would turn out to be such an amazing person." Emily hugged her father tightly, feeling a sense of peace and closure that she had never thought possible. As she looked around the room, filled with people whose lives had been changed by her work, she knew that everything had happened for a reason, and that even the most painful experiences could ultimately lead to something beautiful. In the days that followed the premiere, Emily and her father spent hours talking and catching up. They talked about the past and the pain that had driven them apart, but they also talked about the future and the possibilities that lay ahead. Emily's father was amazed by the work she had done with her sister, and he felt a deep sense of pride in the person she had become. He apologized for the mistakes he had made in the past and promised to be there for her in any way he could. As the months went by, Emily and her father reconnected and developed a close relationship. He became involved in the foundation, helping to raise money and spread awareness about the issues they were working to address. And Emily found that for the first time in her life, she felt truly at peace. She knew that the wounds of the past would never fully heal, but she also knew that forgiveness and compassion were the keys to moving forward and creating a better future. Years later, as Emily looked back on her journey, she realized that the most important lesson she had learned was that even the most painful experiences could ultimately lead to growth and healing. And she felt grateful for the journey that had brought her to where she was today. A strong, compassionate woman with a deep sense of purpose and a family that loved her unconditionally. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel.